Hey there, I just wanted to take a couple minutes and go over with you how to write a thesis statement for your informative essay. So, thesis statements vary depending on what type of essay you're writing. And so, we will be talking about two different types throughout Comp A and Comp B, informative and argumentative. So, the first one for your informative essay is going to be a little bit different. So, obviously, we know that the purpose of an informative essay or an informative thesis is to inform. It's literally in the name. So now that you know that your purpose and you have already selected your topic and you have started some of your research, you can start to construct your thesis statement. Now, a thesis statement is kind of like a living statement. And what I mean by that is it will change likely from the time that you start your paper to the time that you end it. And that's normal and that's okay for your thesis statement to change, because you may find that some of the information that's in your thesis statement, either you don't like it or you can't find enough information to back it up or whatever the case may be. So your thesis statement can and will probably change throughout the writing process. So just keep that in mind. So you want to take time to think about what information are you going to include in your paper, because your thesis statement has to be broad enough to cover all of the aspects of your paper, but narrow enough to stay specifically on topic and short. Your thesis statement is one sentence, okay? So that's what kind of makes it a little difficult, but we're going to talk about how you can cover all the aspects of your paper and still keep it limited to one statement. So for the sake of this lesson, we are going to pretend that I am writing my paper on teenage binge drinking. Okay, so I'm not making an argument, remember, for my informative essay. I'm not arguing for something to keep teenage binge drinking from happening. I'm not, writing anything like that. I'm just giving the facts. Okay, so there are some examples of thesis statements here for my teenage binge drinking research paper. So an example of a thesis statement rather that is too broad would be something like alcohol abuse has consequences. Well, we know that. That's very broad. That's very vague. I could go a lot of places with that. I could go too many places with that. So that's too broad. An example of a thesis statement that is too narrow would be something like alcohol abuse at my high school has resulted in the expulsion of 2 students. That is like super specific, too specific. Okay, we have to find somewhere in between. So an example of a just right thesis statement might be something like cases of alcohol abuse in high schools across America have increased in number and severity over the last 10 years. Okay, so that gives us a basic idea of what I'm going to be writing about and what the main topics are going to be in my paper. So obviously my main is going to be that it has increased in number and severity over the last 10 years. So you can expect, based on my thesis statement, that in my paper I'm probably going to talk about how much it has increased, 20% to 80% or whatever. And I'm probably going to talk about how bad it's gotten. So maybe I'm going to talk about, maybe I found some evidence on car accidents, on car crashes, on, anything like that, on health impacts, school impacts, things like that. So it kind of leaves it broad enough to where I have some room to talk about different things, but it's also not so specific that it boxes me into only talking about certain things, if that makes sense. So an informative thesis statement is going to state what you're going to explain. It's going to outline the organization of your explanation. So like I said, it outlines what are the main points that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the number and severity of teenage binge drinking. So that is the organization of my explanation. So another example of an informative thesis statement: the lifestyle of barn owls include hunting for insects and animals, building nests, and raising their young. Now this is perfect. exactly what I would be looking for. So if you're writing your paper about autism, you're going to say something like this, or you're going to set it up to look something like this. And you want to try to have at least 3 main points, because when you get to your argumentative paper later, you're going to have to do that. So just try to get into the practice of that now. Try to find 3 main things that you're going to be talking about, because those will turn into your body paragraphs. Okay. So if we're going to continue on with our barn owl thesis statement, the lifestyles of barn owls include hunting for insects and animals, building nests, and raising their young. This thesis is informative because it establishes that the paper is going to provide information on the lifestyle of these owls. It doesn't take a stand, it doesn't make a claim or anything that needs to be proved. It's not arguing anything, it's just stating the facts. That's it. This thesis statement also is an example of using subdivisions. So that's kind of what I was talking about. These right here are your subdivisions. The hunting for insects and animals, building nests, and raising their young. That shows us what paragraph 1, body paragraph 1 is going to be about, body paragraph 2 is going to be about, and what body paragraph 3 is going to be about. Okay, so that's what it means by subdivision. So this outlines perfectly what your paper is going to be looking at. So I know that in your first body paragraph, you're going to be talking about how they hunt for insects and animals. In your second paragraph, I know that you're going to be talking about building nests. In your third paragraph, I know that you're going to talk about how they raise their young. So that's what it means. That's what your thesis statement should look like, and that is what it should do. I should be able to pick up your thesis statement and know exactly what to expect from your paper. Okay. It needs to be that simple, that to the point, that easy. Okay. So each category is a separate subdivision in your thesis statement. Okay. Never, ever, ever, last but not least, never, ever, ever should you say, in this essay, I will talk about blank. In this essay, I am going to talk about barn owls. In this essay, my thesis statement is this. Never, 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 never. Try to keep all first and second person out of your essay, because that's going to be like the first thing that you get marked off on. So try to keep it very basic, but not too basic. Okay? Look back at this video if you need help. Okay, if you need to look at it, use it, pause it, use it as a model, use it as an example, because this is what your thesis statement for your informative essay should look like.